and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. And ready to be back in my office and to be chatting with this wonderful woman to the left of me. We're going to talk. This is Laura Silverman, and she's the founder of Zero Proof Nation and Booze Free in DC. And she's been sober for 17 years. And we're going to talk about what she's created, having been sober for 17 years, what you've done with that. And you've got a lot of fans already. Yeah. Monty's here.
Monty, he's a CPG brand designer, really great. I think he's in San Clemente or San something in California.
Okay.
You put it in the chat, Monty. Let us know. But yeah, I have a lot of friends in this ecosystem.
Awesome. That's fantastic, which is really huge because, I mean, let's go from the very beginning. What inspired, because you've been sober for 17 years, so you were in your 20s, we'll just say that.
Yeah.
And what inspired you, one, to go sober and to start Zero Proof Nation across and to where we are today?
Yeah. So I didn't really have inspo to go sober. I was going down a dark path. And so rather than being sober curious or wanting to be a mindful drinker, because there weren't any non-alcoholic options then that existed, and certainly they weren't on my radar, even if there were any, like O'Doul's, there wasn't much on my radar in the first place. But I faced 2 hospitalizations for alcohol poisoning in 18 months from age 22 and a half-ish to 24. And my parents didn't really know what was going on. They were living overseas at the time. My father is a retired U.S. diplomat. And so I was a bit of a train wreck and I needed professional help. And I got really lucky because I was relatively unscathed both times, but I was definitely very affected mentally, emotionally, spiritually, as it were. And I knew that I couldn't keep going down that path. So I had to seek professional help, and I did. And I went to an intensive outpatient program at age 24 by my own volition. Nobody forced me to. I wanted to get help, and I didn't think in terms of forever, but I knew that I couldn't keep drinking alcohol the way that I was. And I also knew that my social life was over as I knew it. There was no more fun. So that's kind of where I was in 2007. I chose life, but I also faced a different kind of death, and that was the death of a social life. And so,
which is very sad.
I know it. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's just disappointing that that's what it was back then, but that's what it was. And for any kind of industry to exist, there had to be a beginning somewhere. And so I think there was always some innovation that was going on in non-alcoholic beverages, but just at a glacial rate. And there weren't, obviously we would fast forward many years to get to the pandemic, which is where we see like this exponential increase in beverage makers. And there were a lot of reasons for that. There was a mental health pandemic too. And then there were a lot of regulations that beverage manufacturers were facing where they couldn't send alcohol or they couldn't produce. There are a lot of reasons why non-alcoholic beverages became so big, really starting in 2020. But there were a lot of things going on behind the scenes for several years before that. And getting back to your original question, and my mind goes like, wee.
No, you're good.
What inspired me to start Zero Proof Nation? Well, a little bit of my backstory, my superhero origin story, which is that I had to be completely sober for me. But I wanted to have fun. I am a fun person, if I do say so myself. And I wanted to do karaoke. I wanted to go to happy hours. I wanted to go to New Year's Eve parties. And I love music festivals and concerts. And I was in a lot of weddings. I went to a lot of weddings. And there was never any kind of thing, any kind of beverage that was catered to people like me. Or, let's be honest, anyone who just didn't want to drink that much, who was pregnant.
Besides soda and a bottle of water. Yeah.
Why someone might not choose to drink alcohol. And so I've always been a consumer first and foremost. And I always wanted options for those social situations that I would go to now. In the first year of my sobriety, I really didn't go to bars. I was nursing my sobriety to make sure that I could stay stable in it. I could continue it. But it was really after a year that I felt pretty like grounded, and this is how I wanted to live my life. And now let me go live my life. And I just have Diet Coke or club soda wherever I went. So Zero Proof Nation is sort of a direct response to me wanting selfishly some kind of all-in-one resource that didn't already exist, where I could find places, I could find beverages, I could connect with people. And there are a couple of people out there that might remember I had a blog called the Sobriety Collective that I started in 2015. I kept it going for about 4 years, and it was sort of an alt sobriety, alt recovery blog. I say that it wasn't rooted in 12 steps. It was not an anonymous program, and it wasn't a program. It was a community. I wanted to meet other people around the world who might have recovered in a different way, who might have stayed sober in a different way, and who were not anonymous about their stories and wanted to share drink options, all of those things. And as I've said before, I have ADHD. I'm a creative, and I felt like my creative juices were kind of starting to just run out of steam there. And I was interested in this growing scene of beverages that I would say in 2017 to 2019, there was something brewing, pun intended. There were new beverages. There were people that were doing pop-ups. I mean, Chris Marshall from Sans Bar and Lorelei Bendrovsky, I can never pronounce her last name, of Listen Bar, and Laura Willoughby of Club Soda in the UK. They were all doing things long before it was cool. And I was talking about these types of beverages long before it was cool. I'll also say that Derek Burnett, yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Derek Brown, when he had the Columbia Room in DC, he had a really robust, thoughtful menu of non-alcoholic cocktails that were not afterthoughts. And that was really the only place I could go to in DC where I could get something that I felt catered to. And no one ever asked, well, that doesn't have alcohol in it. Can't tell you how many times I go to places and I order something non-alcoholic knowingly. I knowingly order this. And they're like, that doesn't have alcohol, right? Yes, I know. That's why I ordered it. So really the fall of 2019 was when I had this idea to do two things at once, because I need two different projects. I wanted to go hyper local with DC, and maybe I could do like a travel guide to the DC area from a non-alcoholic perspective. There were things that were happening. There were brands like Mocktail Club, woman owned. Paul Logo has been doing phenomenal things, and she's got nationwide distribution now. I'm incredibly proud of her. During the pandemic, I was a focus group of one. We tried some different formulations in her backyard, and she's done some great things. Awesome. Charlie Birkinshaw of Element Shrub, he was doing these shrub cocktails long before people really even understood what any of that was. And so, and along with Derek Brown, there was this scene going on in DC. And so I was like, well, let me start a travel guide to the DC area, but also let me see what's going on nationally and internationally as sort of a non-alcoholic resource hub. So I launched Zero Proof Nation in fall of 2019 and Booze Free in DC in January of 2020. And then everything happened in March of 2020. And that's where I will put a pause in it for additional questions or follow-ups. That's how it all began.
Oh, that is awesome. And it really has grown since 17, 19, but COVID really has sparked a thing. And when you look at statistics, they'll probably tell you that it's still a small contingency of the beverage world, right? But the increase in the amount of beverages that have come on the market because of that is huge, right? That's growing dramatically. Now, what is that? A Jazz?
That's Jazz. This is a woman-owned company, graduate of the Darden School of Business, UVA Darden, and I'm a UVA graduate. Cecilia Rios de Murrieta, speaking of HERStory month, this is Jazz's Mojito Fresco, their newest SKU. It's got some yerba mate in it. And I wrote a review on my Substack a couple weeks ago. It's the best RTD mojito I've ever had.
Really?
period.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
highly recommend this. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. I don't have one in front of me. I just got home from the airport. So
that is refreshing.
Good. All right. Hey, Tawny, Laura said, hello. Love your life, ma'am. So
live your life, mommy. I know how she's.
I read it wrong. Live your life, mom.
Live your life, mommy. Yes. Yes. She's one of my.
I need to read.
She's the author of Dry Humping, which is all about sober dating.
And that was it. She was at the festival last year, right? Or was that this year?
Yeah, that last year and this year. Okay. And she's also the co-founder with her husband of a brand called Parentheses. It's a botanical spirit, doubling as an aperitif and digestive combo. It's using forgive me if I get this wrong, but like seaweed and kelp vinegars and all sorts of interesting things that it's different than anything else that's on the market. She would be a phenomenal guest for you.
Okay. Awesome. Tawny, wait for me to reach out. Yeah. Yep. And I'm sorry I missed last year. Something came up and I couldn't come. But
it's okay. It can happen next year. And the year after.
Right. Yeah. And it keeps getting better. So I'm so excited about it. Okay. So a lot has happened in the last 5 years, 6 years, right? Since this is and I've talked to, what's his name from Non-Alcoholic Beverage Association, Marcos. Yes. So he and I have talked about the skyrocketing numbers that are happening, but it's still kind of slow when you're talking about events, right? I mean, you might be able to get into it in a bar and those mixologists and those bartenders are really kind of doing it. I did go to a restaurant in Denver this past weekend and it was great. They had 6 cocktails that are pre-designed on the menu. They had NA next to each one of them, or from next to 2 of the 6.
Okay.
And Monty, just loved your product placement.
Yes, I saw it. LOL.
That's awesome. But what confused me about it is because at the bottom of the menu, it said gluten-free and vegan. They had the GF and the V next to it. And so they had the NA next to that. Well, I made the assumption that those 2 were NAs. But it said at the very top of the menu, by request. And so I ordered it and it came fully loaded.
Oh my word.
Yeah. And so I'm like, Jason, I didn't want the alcohol in this.
And it said NA next to it and it still arrived fully loaded?
Yes. But the NA, as my friend Kayla said, the nomenclature of labels, whatever that word is, nomenclature of labeling on menus, because the GF and the V were next to the foods that were gluten-free and vegan. And so I just made the assumption that if the NA is next to it, that it would be NA.
That's an assumption that I think anyone would make if they see that. So there's first of all, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And even I would be even more sorry if you were fully sober and that happened.
Right.
Because that does happen to a lot of people that I know. And here I am with product placement, with intros, with people, but I would talk to Beth Harbinson of Sobar. She is behind the scenes putting together a training program so that things like this don't happen anymore, so that people are educated as bar staff, as restaurant managers. There needs to be some consistency. And if something says it's NA, it should be NA. And if someone orders something, pour it at the table so that they know that you're not just giving them a beer that you got from a draft. It could be anything. So,
well, and with all these brands coming out, you don't necessarily know what all the non-alcoholic gins are or the spirits and things like that. So there's so many brands coming out there. There's no way that I would have known if that was real or not.
Right.
And I say real, but you know what I mean.
Traditional.
Yeah.
With booze. Yeah. And I mean, booze. Well, also say you were talking about events and conferences, weddings, and of course, the rest of hospitality, airlines, hotels, all of that. There's still a long way to go with getting these beverages more widely accepted and adopted. But I've seen more cruise lines adopt NA beverages, and I think conferences and events, that's the next frontier, because I can't tell you how many back in the day when I was doing a lot of substance use disorder advocacy and mental health advocacy work, I would go to these conferences and there would be open bars with liquor at
Mm-hmm.
a mental health or addiction conference, which just did not track.
That's really crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I want to bring one of my questions is about this map because you started in DC and I want to pull it up. Let me see if I can do this.
Yeah, get fancy.
Yeah.
Okay, share that screen.
Let's see. Share screen.
And for everyone else still watching, hi. If you're my friends, I love you. And if you're Tracy's friends, hi. Nice to meet you. Please pop something in the chat.
Yes, please do. I need to put that banner down there. If you've got questions, ask them in the chat. Okay, so here is your map. So when you designed this, what was revealed to you about the growth and the gaps in the movement of this non-alcohol movement? Because you started with DC, but then you're like, okay, let's do it internationally. But what have you seen? Oh, wow. And I zoom out. Look at all the one. Bless you, Mom.
Bless you, Mom. Yeah, and you can, to really get the full functionality of it, you can open it up in Google Maps. And
oh, wow.
So if you just press that button that says, scroll down a tiny bit, scroll your screen down a little.
And then open in Google Maps. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
And so that's the full functionality. So you can sort by different types of categories. You can, with the search bar up there, you can look for a particular state or city. And so where it sort of began and where it is now, I have actually just hired a VA because I can't keep up with the map. People keep asking me to update it. They keep asking me to put their locations on there. And those are the people that know that this exists. There are other people doing really innovative things in the non-alcoholic scene that don't even know this map exists. So they can't know about everything. But suffice it to say, I would say it's about 85% fully accurate right now. There's a lot of things that just aren't on there yet. But basically, I started on the website on Zero Proof Nation as putting together directories of bottle shops and bars. Where it was just kind of a scrolling page of logos. If you go to exactly this, like it was, and it started very small because there weren't a lot of bottle shops and bars in 2020 and 2021, but it really started expanding. And so I had everything all together in one thing. It was just all of the world's stuff on one page. And then I realized that was not going to suffice because people needed to know where things were. So then I categorized it by the US, categorized it by global. If you scroll down even more.
Oh, down here. Okay.
No, back to that page you were just on. Then you go to an international. You were there. You were almost there.
Oh, I was almost there. Okay.
Oh, wow. I need to. Yep. Something happened and I've got to change that because there's much blank space. But these are all the NA bottle shops around the world. And so, I mean, we're talking New Zealand to Switzerland to the UK to Singapore. There's stuff everywhere. France, Germany. And so I realized in doing this that this was getting to be very big. It was growing at an incredible pace, and it wasn't really user friendly in my mind to just kind of scroll down a list. I said to myself, why not map it out and see what this dry economy looks like on a global map? And so I had been documenting, like I said, these bottle shops and booze-free bars or pop-ups. And so I started this map. I had actually done a couple of virtual road trips in the pandemic where I would do like a East Coast, middle of the US, and West Coast road trip of different bottle shops and bars. And it was so tiny then that you could just like pop a few logos on the map of the US and do your road trip. But it got so big that you just couldn't see any of the logos anymore. So then I decided I would just make this a map and every single location would have a pin to it. What makes this, I think, more unique than just a traditional Google map is that most Google Maps are obviously like they are location based. You have to have a Google Maps. And entry. Like you have to have a Google My Business entry. But I see that there were a lot of e-commerce bottle shops and a lot of pop-ups and mobile mixologists that were doing things. And they deserve to have a place on the map too. So this is a combination of not just brick and mortar locations, but also pop-ups and e-commerce stores that are perhaps regionalized to a particular state or a couple of countries or something in Europe. And it's just kind of grown and grown and grown and grown. We're literally on 6 of 7 continents. There's nothing in Antarctica yet. I joke about having some researchers open up a bar or a bottle shop. But someone did bring one of my friends who has a pop-up bar in Dallas. She actually brought the bitters that I created with Ian Blessing and his team over at All the Bitter. She brought that with her on a cruise to Antarctica. So technically, NA beverages have hit all 7 continents.
That's so fun.
Oh, thank you, Mary Therese. She says this is an incredible resource. Also highlights where the hub areas are and what areas are growing. Hopefully. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
It's a growing, as you can see, it's growing, and every single logo, you can zoom in a little bit more to see what they look like, but every place has a different type of logo, whether it's like a brick and mortar shop or an e-commerce store or a pop-up. I just also added a couple of new categories. The 2 bottom categories, NA friendly shops and NA forward hospitality. Those have the most opportunity to grow right now. Those are places, the NA friendly shops are places that aren't just non-alcoholic bottle shops. They might be like sundry stores or like home goods that have a nice selection of NA there. And I'm starting to collect information from different people about different shops. And my vision for NA forward hospitality is, I mean, there's so much more than what I put there, but it has to start somewhere. I'm looking for like restaurants and bars that have just as many non-alc options as they have.
You can add Cypress Hall here in New Bern, North Carolina to that list.
Cypress Hall, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
CYPRESS.
Writing that down. Yeah, please. If you wouldn't mind introing me to the
I can do that.
I can learn about what they're doing. But, like Michelin star restaurants that have NA pairing menus, that kind of thing.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for in that category. And I mean, there are plans to repurpose the map into other types of content too.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Revealed.
So and Cypress Hall really does a good job. I mean, they probably have like 10 drinks on their menu, and they put a little like time icon next to it, like the herb, right? And saying these can be made NA.
Okay.
And the one of them I love is called What's Up Doc, and it's carrots and
carrot
jalapeno.
paste?
Yes, it is.
I love that.
And with jalapeno, and it's really delicious. It's more of a summertime drink that they have, but I do love it. But when you were doing that, were there any gaps that you were finding? I mean, I know there's a pop-up in Austin. I know there was a store in Raleigh, but I think it closed. But I don't know. Somebody may have.
Raleigh. So I used to know about every single place in the world, which I
think it was Umbrella Dry Bar.
Umbrella Dry Bar. That's right. Yeah. Meg still exists.
Okay.
But I think she's doing a pop-up now.
Okay. Gotcha.
I'm looking for a brick and mortar location. Umbrella Dry Bar is still there, but not, you're right, not in the sense that it was before.
Okay.
Yeah, the original gaps were kind of everything that is not covered by a coast. So the East Coast was booming, really booming, especially New York. I mean, New York City is kind of like the hub of where it all started in the U.S. That spirited away. I think you've had Douglas on the show too, right?
Maybe. No. Waiting to get,
Okay.
Trying.
Douglas and Victoria, they started Spirited Away in 2020. And there's so much that's going on, whether it's pop-ups or brick and mortar bars, bottle shops there. DC is really growing too. We've got we have a couple of booze-free bars, and we've got bottle shops in DC and Maryland. And then, of course, you would think that LA would have been one of the first to hop on this, but it took them a little while. Now they've got tons going on there. So you'd see the coasts. There was a lot, and then of course you had Sands Bar in Austin, but there was a lot that was missing in the middle of the country, and the Midwest was starting to grow pretty quickly. There's a lot going on in the Midwest, Indiana, Chicago. Canada came out of the woodwork, and there's a lot going on in Canada. Certainly, geographically speaking, there's a gap in Africa. There's just not a lot going on there, but there is an alcohol-free bar in Ghana called Eden Bar. Oh. Australia and Oceania, that's a big area that, I mean, literally, but also in terms of NA, there's a lot going on with bottle shops and bars. Europe, of course, like, not sure if you knew this, but the UK was kind of like the epicenter of all of this.
Oh.
Club Soda has been doing a lot with mindful drinking. It's an organization that has now a brick and mortar tasting room and bottle shop in London. But as an organization, they were putting on festivals, classes, meetups for years. And of course, the very first luxury NA spirit, botanical spirit, Seedlip, by Dan Johnson and his team, that came out of the UK. And so there's the UK has really kind of been the leader in this. And of course, Americans like to do bigger, better, faster, all of that. So we've definitely caught up steam, but I would say the gaps are filling in, certainly. And the issue that a lot of folks are finding is just, as it is in any economy, when you have big box stores or chain restaurants and you're a mom and pop shop retailer or you're a mom and pop shop restaurant, it is hard to compete with that. And not to say that there's not a need for, I do shop on Amazon, but if I'm able to shop locally and if I'm able to shop from small business even more, we'll do that. So I think there's a need for both in a lot of ways, but I think a lot of the indie retailers and folks who are running their own hospitality businesses are struggling a little bit. And so I'm just going to give the perfect segue into this bitter cherry coffee bitters that I put together with all the bitter. So these are only available at friendly retailers across the country. It's not on Amazon. It's not at big box. It's not at like Total Wine More. As a way to get foot traffic to these independent retailers and support small business and support local. And when you, I guess, send out follow-up information. Oh, there it is. That's it. You're so good, Tracy. You are prepared. I made a cocktail for everyone. And I was thinking after I made it that it could benefit from a little bit of lemon, actually, to brighten things up. Because I realized I had a cold brew shandy recently and I wasn't expecting how good lemon and coffee were together. But I think I would add like a squeeze of lemon to the top. So maybe we can just edit that and it's called the Berry Bright Eyed, and it's a cocktail for everyone who wants it.
Let me see if I can get. Well, it won't go bigger for some reason.
Oh, that's all good.
Yeah, but I can share it out. Yeah. Okay.
I don't fancy myself as much of a mixologist, but I do like to play a mad scientist in the kitchen, and I think this came out pretty good. And like I said, I would add a squeeze of lemon to it, but it basically is a way to showcase these new bitters that we put together, but also bring in some other brands from the NA world, and it's decaf coffee, by the way, so you can have an espresso tonic at night, and it's not going to mess up your sleep.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'll have to find something to change that to. But yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's okay. No, don't worry about me.
Yes, you could always use all the bitter aromatic bitters. That would go nicely as well. So, and if you have like Angostura bitters at home or something that has like baking spices, you can. I think you could even get by with like some vanilla as well. But I think it needs something that has helps with rounding things out.
Right. Yeah. And that's important because I think even the drink that I had the other day, and it had beets in it and a couple of other things, it was very earthy.
Yeah,
you do have
earthy. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
But I think that when somebody, I don't know if I was talking to somebody about the pricing of stuff, I'm like, but it's a curated non-alcoholic beverage, so I'm willing to pay the price. And Kate from Zero Proof Collective,
yes,
we've talked about this, it's curated and I'm willing. She's like, why are you going to only charge me $5 for it? Right. I mean, if you're using non-alcoholic gin or whatever, those prices are the same as some of those prices are the same as a regular bottle of gin, and like regular meaning alcoholic bottle of gin.
Yeah.
So you should be charging me for that, your cost of that. Right.
Yeah. I mean, ethanol costs very little, but that's
right.
what people just kind of associate a higher price point with the alcohol by volume content. Mm-hmm. But many of these, not just the spirits, but if you're looking at non-alcoholic wine and beer, to go mm-hmm. through a dealcoholization process or to source the right kinds of yeast that provide like arrested fermentation, it is a mm-hmm. more costly and more involved process. And it's going mm-hmm. to, as a result, the end consumer should have to pay more because it's a more costly process to create. And oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes these beverages are healthier. Can't say, I mean, I think they are healthier just by virtue of not having alcohol, but they can be loaded with sugar. They can be loaded with preservatives. And so I caution anyone to be a discerning customer and read labels. Make sure you know what you're investing.
Well, and then Derek just put out a story or an article on his Substack too, is like, we need alcohol labeling. And I had 2 podcast episodes talking about that because we label our food for allergens and things like that. All right. Monty just piped in, and Monty, thank you for piping in. I've been making whiskey sours with Monday's whiskey, ATB, cherry coffee bitters, lemon, and maple syrup. And he's addicted to it. That sounds very good.
I'm going to add lemon now for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks, Monty. That sounds really good. I'll have to try that too.
Yeah. Okay. So as a woman in this industry, in the food and in the beverage industry, how, and to me, you're leading this with this website and the knowledge that you have. Have you had any challenges? And I'm going to say it's an old boys school because of the liquor industry in itself, right? So how has that, being a woman in this industry and bringing NA into this, how has that impacted you?
I think it's actually way more subtle and subversive than I can give like a blanket answer for, because I'm not actually working behind the bar. I don't own an establishment. And I know that a lot of my friends who are women have faced some things that they have to go through more hoops than a man would. I think one of the things that I've faced as a solopreneur in sort of the media building business or the journalistic community building, I don't even know what you call what I do, but I think some of the things that I've faced have been more sort of self-imposed, holding myself back, imposter syndrome that a lot of women get as a result of living in this society. Not necessarily because someone told me I couldn't do X, Y, and Z, but because there just aren't, in my view, enough opportunities for women still. We're working on it. We're knocking on a lot of doors. And by the way, women kind of run the non-alcoholic industry. I mean, there are a lot of fantastic men and certainly a lot of fantastic non-binary folks too, but there are so many women founders and women bar shop owners and women bar owners, and women are really leading the way. And so I would love to see more. I was sad to learn about Distill Ventures incubator kind of going away. And I would love to see more incubators that can help women founders. I know that Pauline has done something with like a Kate Spade incubator for business women, but that's for brand owners. And I think it would be great to see some kind of incubator or community for women in the space that may not have a beverage business, more ways for there to be community and for there to be resource sharing, transparency, not gatekeeping. I want to shout out Sam Bale, who is the founder of Third Place Bar in New York City. And she started a Slack channel for business owners, not brands, but business owners in the NA space to have transparency and knowledge sharing and just a community of practice. And I think it's a really great way for people to learn from each other and to learn about different kind of pricing structures and what's doing well. And can you help me figure out different types of events or whatever? So I think more opportunities, the better. And I would just like to tell future me and past me, like it can be challenging. And especially if you're facing any kind of like mental health issues, it can be challenging. So I need to be done with the imposter syndrome and just take the reins. Yeah, I think that there are a lot of like subtle ways that women hold themselves back in this industry. So
I just posted 2 interviews. One I did with Lauren from Spiritless and one that I did with Naughty, the founder of Naughty.
Oh, Amanda. Yeah.
Amanda. Yes.
Yeah. She's fantastic. They both are. And I love both of their brands. So there are, like I said, there are a lot of women in this space that are doing great things. And I would also love to shout out Taylor Foxman of the Industry Collective. She is a badass businesswoman. She advises beverage companies that are in the alc and non-alc space. And she's a super connector just like me. So
that's awesome.
She really helps. She actually does have a female founders call that happens, I think, once a month or once every other month. I just haven't been able to go to it because I have a full-time job, which I'm on my lunch break from and have to get back to.
Yes, we have I think 5 more minutes.
We do.
Yes. So one of the things that I found really interesting in a lot of the things that you talk about too is the fact that we're not trying to say get rid of alcohol. So how do we balance the promoting of mindful drinking without alienating those who still drink? And what's the message that you want people to hear?
It's interesting because I'm sober. I'm booze free. I don't engage in mindful drinking, but I do kind of play a sober, curious, mindful drinker on TV in the sense that I think the message of moderation is more impactful than the message of prohibition. And I have friends and family that still drink alcohol, but they drink a lot less, knowing that what alcohol is. It's an indulgence. It's a drug, but it's an indulgence. So it's not something that is adding to health, but I eat surf. That doesn't add to my health, but I enjoy it. Right. So knowing that, and they also know what I've been through. And so that also informs their habits a bit too. But I think, like I said, prohibition strikes a more austere message than moderation. And I think just encouraging, following Derek's work is fantastic. Just encouraging mindful consumption. Another fabulous person in this industry that I love. She's French and she lives in the UK. Her name is Camille Vidal and her Instagram is Mindfully Cami. And she talks a lot about mindful drinking. And she taught me these terms a few years ago before people were talking about bookending and zebra striping. So
okay, what is that? Okay.
Zebra striping is alternating alcoholic, non-alcoholic, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, and bookending is starting your night and ending your night with non-alcoholic. And maybe you drink 1 or 2 alcoholic beverages in the middle, but you start and end with NA. And so there are just different ways to incorporate mindful drinking into one's lifestyle. And whether that means that one night someone might alternate and one night someone might just drink NA altogether. Right. But it's encouraging that it's not about drinking alcohol mindfully and that like, ooh, I love how the burn affects me. I love how I'm getting like it's more about being aware of consumption and aware of resources and education out there. And I think everyone can benefit from having more non-alcoholic beverages in their lives, however they choose to identify.
100%. And I did have an event I produced last year and a guy was zebra striping. And he said, I'm like, he came up and ordered the non-alcoholic beer, the Athletic. And he's like, no, I've got to make sure that I'm up and viable at 2 a.m. when we're still in the bar. And so I'm alternating between the two.
He was still up at 2 a.m. Wow.
Oh no, this was at 6. This was at 7 p.m. and he knew he was going to be up until 2. And I'm like, okay, brave. That's brave for you.
Fun.
Exactly. Not fun. Okay. So one final question, because we've got like a minute left for your lunch break. And so I'm so glad that you're spending your lunch break with me. Where do you hope that the beverage industry looks like in 5 years from now as it relates to choice, equity, and inclusion?
Such a great question. I would hope that NA is just as prevalent as A, that there are as many non-alcoholic options on a menu as there are alcoholic options. And whether or not I think that's possible right now versus 5 years, like I think there is space to have more robust menus, not just in places of hospitality and certainly not just in places that are considered fine dining, but dive bars. Like every dive bar should have a couple of NA beer options. Every dive bar should have a couple of gin and tonics that are made with NA spirits. I want to see more in travel. I want to see more in cruises, airports, airlines. There's a lot. There's a lot that I'd love to see. I think we're already seeing some shifts in the types of beverages. Non-alcoholic THC beverages are taking off. I mean, they've got a lot of steam, and there might be different types of beverages that don't exist yet that are coming. So we'll see where things take us. But I definitely want to see more options available wherever one goes, and support your local non-alcohol shop.
Yeah. All right. I have one question to run off of the tangent of that. I talked to a guy that works in an airport. He runs bars in airports, and he's like, well, why am I going to take the Tito's off the shelf when I can make so much more money using that than putting in a non-alcoholic?
Because he's thinking about it differently. He's thinking about his margins differently. And there are a lot of fantastic NA tequilas and mezcals out there that are pricey. Tomo no Tomo is made in Oaxaca, and it's fantastic. And it's a premium liquid. It's not just it's not a rail. I don't know if Tito's is considered premium or rail. I don't even know because I don't order the same thing. But you can price higher. He doesn't have to think of an NA beverage as being a $3 thing, and no one's telling him to take it off the shelf, but we're asking him to add something to the shelf.
Well, and his argument is that he has, because he's in an airport, he has tiny shelves. So
give me a number. Let me talk.
I will. I will. Okay. You are a rock star. I love what you're doing, and I appreciate what you're doing because I haven't been drinking since 2019. So I really do appreciate what you are doing, and I need to create my own cocktails at home too. So this is Laura Silverman. We were talking about safe, sober, and inclusive, and you can connect with her on LinkedIn. There is her LinkedIn profile. And yes, exactly. And then Zero Proof Nation on Instagram and zeroproofnation.com.
Yep.
So
absolutely. You use the website. It's got a lot of juicy
map is
content.
awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So cool.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome.
So great to be here. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll see you soon, and back to work I go.
All right. Back to work you go. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye. Please go back and listen to all of these HERStory stories that these women that I've interviewed for Women's HERStory Month this month. So I think there's 7 of them total. And they are all fantastic women that are making a mark in food and beverage in a variety of different capacities. Some of them are with events and some of them are not, but they also they kind of all produce their own events. So thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, stay safe and eat well. Thanks. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.